Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for September 6th to September 12th of 2015. And on September 6th, we have the sun denoted right here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Virgo, and it's in the 64th hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we've got the chop mark for the 64, numbered from bottom to top. The 64 goes yin, yang, yin, yang, yin, yang, and which is the same as this hexagram right here. The 64th hexagram is mapped to an opening in the energy channel called a gate. Right here is the 64th gate of confusion before completion. Transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through, located in the head center in an abstract energy path in the collective sensing circuit called the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity that connects to its harmonic, the 47th gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person, that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on September 6th. We've got the sun in the 64th gate with the earth in the 63rd gate. The north node is in the 46th gate with the south node in the 25. We have Mercury in the 48th gate, with Venus at a standstill as it turns direct later on the 6th in the 7th, along with Mars being in the 7th gate. Jupiter is in the 59th gate. Saturn is in the 14th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 51st gate. Neptune retrograde in the 37th gate. And Pluto is retrograde in the 38th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather's for your pleasure. And as we begin the week, we've got one channel definition due to the transit field, with the south node in the 25 and Uranus in the 51. We have the channel of initiation, the design of needing to be first until November 29th, when we might experience some sort of leap into the unknown. This is an individual channel that empowers through the courage to take a chance on something that's unknown and deal with the consequences afterwards. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing this being played out in local and world events. Obviously, following your strategy and authority will help you determine if this initiation is correct for you, or if faced with multiple possibilities to experience a quantum shift, which ones, if any, are correct for you. In the mundane world, we're likely to see people become more competitive, push the boundaries, getting outside of their comfort zones, which will be shocking to themselves and others as they feel the wonder of their own unique spirit. If you experience people acting unpredictable during this time, recognize that it's a conditioning force that will eventually move on, but it could seem like folks are less in balance while experiencing this foreign energetic. And with the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel as if they've got something to prove or make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. And the defined G center could influence folks without to obsess about where they're headed or where they'll find love. This is also individual circuitry, so it brings melancholy or blue feelings that are best used in some type of creative activity. And the reason this transit is here so long is that Uranus turned retrograde in the 6th line of the 51st gate back on the 26th of July. So we have this channel of shock initiation defined for the entire time that the nodes are in the 25-46 axis. We're going to be looking at the sun's ray-Ching line values daily because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said, in Living with the Programs, the lines of the day, when talking about these daily shifts to line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. Of course, if your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. September 6th begins with the sun in the third line of the 64. So the sun in the 64-3 is overextension, exalted, the wisdom to recognize when one has not the necessary resources to complete transition. Such timely awareness gives it a chance to seek assistance, the wisdom to accept confusion as a temporary state that will be resolved in time or through others, detrimenting the risk of a superficially confident personality that when transition collapses, there's no one to turn to. Overconfidence that the fates will be kind on demand. Third line days, we're talking about trial and error process, bonds made and broken, and a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. But then later on the 6th, the sun then moves up into the fourth line. So leaving the martyr line, moving into the opportunist line of the 64. The shift happens at 10:53 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 64-4 is described as conviction, exalted, symbolized by its phases. The moon is assured of transition, convinced by its very process that it will triumph. The assuredness that confusion is a process that results in realization. Detrimented where force and energy alone cannot overcome doubt. Where confusion is so energized, assuredness brings no relief. Fourth line days, at this point we move out of the lower trigram into the upper trigram. So moving out of an internal process into more looking outward, more transpersonal, with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, and the other types of social interaction. Also on the 6th, Jupiter moves out of the 59 and into the 40, bringing this definition. And obviously with Jupiter in the 40 and we've got Neptune in the 37, this is going to be here for quite a while. In human design, Jupiter is generalized law, the electromagnetic central operating theater in which the solar system operates. Living by the law can gain great good fortune. Activations in our human design chart tell us the law we must live by. To benefit from the generosity only comes from deep obedience to honoring your own law, your individual strategy and authority. Jupiter is in the 40th gate of aloneness, which is deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And Jupiter is in the first line of the 40, which is recuperation, exalted, the ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's behavior. The ego strength to enjoy being alone, detrimenting the ego strength ego strength to enjoy being alone. Detrimented the ego uncomfortable with being alone too long. So anyway, with Jupiter in the 40 and Neptune in the 37, we've got the channel of community until October 3rd. This definition brings energy where people will wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It will be a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes more important under the influence of community. Balance becomes important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level, how they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. We talked about the defined ego and its influence on people without a defined heart center in making promises that maybe aren't correct for them or feeling like they've got something to prove. The defined solar plexus For those who do not have an emotional definition, this channel can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps leading to acting confrontational. On the 7th, the sun then moves up into the 5th line, the heretic line of the 64, at 10:04 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 64:5 is described as promise, exalted, the values promised in any new order that are demonstrated through the harmonic interactions with others. This strengthens the justification for struggle, confusion over which values and relationships can bring harmony, a tendency to trying to justify the struggle by focusing exclusively on the failure of the old order that cannot demonstrate the quality of the new, focusing on the past confusions about values and relationships. Fifth line days, as we've talked about in the past, we're talking about projection that goes from positive to negative. Positive, they could do it, they're the perfect person for that. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it for whatever reason, the projection and the expectation is not fulfilled, that's when the projection turns negative, the person gets punished, the heretic is tied to the stake, as it were. Fifth line days can be a day of suspicion, but also of universalization, where something can leak out, spread like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video, Facebook post, just about anything. There is a great deal of paranoia that they associate with the fifth line day, which can impact the nature of relationships. But as I've said before, if they're projecting on you and you're not meeting their expectation and thus they're trying to punish you, then it really isn't paranoia if they are out to get you. Seduction is also a theme of a fifth line day. And then also on the 7th, Mars moves out of, also on the 7th, yes, sorry. On September 7th, Mars moves out of the 7th hexagram. It's leaving Venus behind, and it moves up into the 4. So up here in the Ajna center, which then brings us another definition. Defining the Ajna center, also defining the head center. So let's talk about this. Mars is in the gate of formalization, youthful folly, the energy to beguile and succeed despite ignorance, freedom from retribution. Mars is in the first line of the 4th hexagram, which is pleasure. Ultimate pleasure cannot be achieved without perfect timing. Exalted, the instinct to know the right moment and circumstances where pleasure is rewarded and not punished. The potential to recognize that there is a natural timing to the understanding process. Detrimenting, timing is not a product of discipline. Exaggerated self-discipline leads to abuse of pleasure. The potential to recognize but the urge to force the timing. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and yet immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. And Mars represents the warrior archetype, and that by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And with Mars in the 4 and the Earth in the 63, we've got the channel of logic until the 9th, which is about mental ease mixed with doubt. None of us is designed to make decisions based on our minds, and this channel brings mental gifts that should be used in the service of others rather than trying to understand our own lives. When your strategy and authority presents you with someone who needs your clarity and inspiration, this transit can support the process. This is scientific thinking through being skeptical and questioning whether the logic or patterns are valid. It brings mental pressure to people without a defined head center, which in turn can lead to doubt, when trying to analyze your own life. The definition is future-oriented through looking at the mental patterns and projecting them into what lies ahead. This can bring worry, as any answers revealed by the process will need to be tested and proved to determine if they have practical applications. The best use of this definition is for research purposes and testing a hypothesis, then recognizing that the results need to be invited before they can be shared. And then with the defined ajna center, people are more likely to believe that they are mentally certain, and the defined head center can bring pressure to think about things that don't matter. On the 8th, the sun then moves up into the 6th line of the 64th hexagram at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 64/6 is victory, exalted. The mental assured is to know when victory is inevitable, thus making triumph sweet, but not a reason for excess. The mental gift of enjoying the confusion and its diversity of data. Detrimented, like the story of the Trojan horse, it can be disastrous. It can be dangerous to get carried away in celebration. Least one loses vigilance and perspective. With the diversity of data, it's easy to lose perspective. 6 line days, we're up on the roof of the hexagram. I've just talked about before being on the roof of a building. We tend to be looking beyond the building, what's down the road, what's on the horizon, what's in the neighborhood, things like that, rather than what's happening with the building itself. So Ra talked about that this is a day when you don't want to get stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your kneecaps or shins, that there's a lack of focus on what's going on around you because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like a 3rd line day, there can be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming, things of that nature. And then on the 9th, the sun then moves out of the 64 and it moves into the 47. And the Earth moves out of the 63. So this definition moves on. We still have Mars in the 4. And the Earth moves into the 22. So we've got the Earth in the 22nd hexagram in the gate of openness, grace, a quality of behavior best suited for handling mundane and trivial situations. And this shift happens at 8:24 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 47th gate of realizing oppression, a restrictive state, and a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength, or both. The sun in the first line of the 47 is taking stock, exalted the ability in times of hardship to concentrating on eradicating the negative factors that have led to oppression, realizing that negative thoughts have to be eradicated. Detrimented to the delusion of seeing oppression as an exclusively external phenomena with disastrous results. The sense that the world is against you. And now we're in a new hexagram, and in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd lines, this is a lower trigram. These are days when folks are more looking inward, more absorbed in their own process, with the theme of the 1st line being about a fear or anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it brings a day to study, not to act, a day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't know, can't understand, or can't make sense of. And then on the 10th, the sun then moves up into the 2nd line of the 47. And the sun in the 2nd line of the 47. This shift happens at at 7:33 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 47-2 is described as ambition, exalted. The ambition and drive to overcome personal oppression in order to achieve security, realizing that to be busy is mentally healthy. Detrimented and indecisiveness in times of personal oppression, whether to apply intelligence to recovery or accept its weight to take advantage of other prevailing conditions that may only be temporary. The inability to sense when and which activity is healthy. Second line days, yeah, people are waiting for something. Definitely, usually they're waiting to be called. You call for their natural talents. Again, lower trigram, they're stuck in their own trip. It's not a great day to have a big social event because people would rather stay home under the influence of the hermit line. But then on the 11th, the sun then moves up into the martyr line of the 47 at 6:41 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the 47.3 is self-oppression, exalted the conscious and well-integrated being whose natural right action will eventually come to see the unfoundedness of its oppression, the eventual realization that one is really okay, detrimented a self-oppression so highly energized that it may prove irreversible and destructive, extreme difficulty in realizing one's self-worth. Against third line days, trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. Things bump into us under that third line influence, so it's a day to be careful on the roads. Be careful of things in your environment, whether it's a swinging door or somebody's elbow or something of that nature. Might be a day when we have bonds made and broken. Again, third line day is trial and error process. It's a good material day. It's a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you have to be careful because things can go wrong, and but it's possible that those things will lead to discovery. And then on the 12th, the sun then moves up into the fourth line of the 47 at 5:58 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The sun in the fourth line of the 47 is repression, the constants of external oppression, exalted, the strength of identity that even in times of the most powerful oppression can maintain its resources and to some extent ensure the survival for the benefit of others. A sense of identity that can be maintained despite external conditioning. Detrimented when robbed of its light, the moon is lost in darkness, barely able to nourish itself, let alone others. The identity overwhelmed by external conditions. And fourth line days, as we talked about at the beginning, we're moving out of the lower trigram into the upper trigram. With the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, moving into a more of an external perspective. And the fourth line day really is great for some type of social interaction. And then no matter what the energies that are conditioning you during the week, just remember this is an experience about being a passenger that's riding in a vehicle that's being driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on this world stage. Just take some time to observe your play, watch your movie, as well as acting your part. Remember, you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. And I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on September 13, 2015. It should be available on the 12th. When we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube, as there's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as a videos or as text as widely as you choose, and invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you've got any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. As always, I am blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All right, all my best to you, and look forward to connecting again at some point in the future.